going to start off with a very interesting presentation from Spring Airlines. Jonathan, I think you're going to talk about social media, particularly. Good. And then we're going to follow that with a panel session on some of the issues for LCCs in and out of China. I can see a few more people standing outside, but hopefully once we get rolling, you'll come on in. Do come in, please do. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, the lucky ones of you who are here, I'm very pleased to introduce to you Mr. Jonathan Hutt. Again, one of the things that happens in life, but unfortunately, Ms. Zhang, who is the CEO of Spring, has some family issues, and at the last minute also could not be here, but she does send her best wishes, and she sends her best man to come and present on her behalf. So Jonathan Hutt, if you'd like to come up and give us your pearls of wisdom, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Zhang deeply regrets not being here today, and she asked me to deliver this message. She says that, you know, we are a very small airline working in a market which is undergoing rapid and sometimes unprecedented change. And for us, small airlines such as Spring, these forums are very, very valuable. And we want to be part of this discussion here, right now, and in the future. So I'd like to thank Peter and all his team for having put together such a wonderful forum. What I've learned this morning has been a great deal, and I will definitely be taking that back with me today. As you can see here, this is a very content-heavy presentation, very Chinese, so I'm going to have to try and rush through as quickly as I possibly can. You can see that we are now celebrating our 7th anniversary, July this year, and that's quite a remarkable milestone because many skeptics were very keen to say that the LCC model would not work in China. I think we have proved them wrong. We very much are an airline in transition, which of course is a key theme to these presentations over the next few days. And we want to talk specifically about how Spring is facing some of these problems, addressing them, and some of the opportunities it sees in the future. So a little way of an overview, we just really have to say that the definition of what is a new age airline in LCC is very difficult to gauge, particularly in China. And we have shown that we can actually adapt, take elements from very many different models and make them relevant into this unique market. So I'm not going to dwell particularly much on this, but we are learning from each other, and Spring realizes that in more mature markets and developing markets, there are things that we can take on board and use, and I think we've done that in the past successfully, and we will continue to do so in the future. For us, there are many, many key drivers of change that we're seeing now. Obviously, we're seeing large fleet sizes, which has changed the nature of networks across the Asian region, and is affecting the way that we are doing business and planning our own development. But also we see potential growth for collaboration between LCCs, and this is something we actively pursue, and we actively encourage our dialogue on these issues. But more importantly, we see that there are market leaders in terms of non-traditional media, social media, which is something I want to talk about in more detail today, because this is really driving our Spring Airlines growth right now and in the future again. So it's a good idea to just give you an overview of really who we are. Of course, we were China's first LCC. We were part of that wave of partial liberalization in the Chinese aviation market, which began in 2004. A lot has happened since then, and a lot of the players that emerged at that time are no longer with us. They were either privatized, they went bankrupt, or they just disappeared entirely. Spring survived, and for a number of reasons, which I'll talk about in a moment. What we've seen is that we've shown that this LCC model, which when it first emerged in the Chinese marketplace, was something we had to explain what it was, not only to the customer, but also to the regulatory authorities and some of our strategic partners. Now, people are suddenly realizing the importance of the LCC model to the Chinese aviation market and its future development. Last year, the head of the CAAC, Li Jiaxiang, said for the first time that LCCs were critical for the development of the Chinese aviation market. And that was a seismic change in the way that the Chinese leadership has thought about the development of its aviation market. In the past, LCCs have never been mentioned whatsoever. So this, in a way, was kudos for Spring. Of course, from the outset, we had to overcome all of the obstacles that an LCC would encounter at a new market, and that was customer perception. What was an LCC? Was it low quality? Or even more alarmingly, was it unsafe? And so for us, since day one, we've been keen to be, number one, the top investor in safety in China, and also to prove to the Chinese market that an LCC can be a quality proposition. I want to just take a moment here to show you what actually has happened in the 30 years since Spring has been around. This is actually a photograph of the first Spring travel office in Shanghai, and now a very high rental district in Shanghai. It was a 2 by 2 square meter tin shack, effectively, selling tourist products to a Chinese consumer who had never had the luxury of travel independent or otherwise. And this is really a way of saying what the Chinese market has achieved in those 30 years. It's very easy to just look at China's rapid development over the last 20 years. It's more important to see the base that we have come from. This is part of Shanghai's success, economic success story, and I think also part of Spring's success story. Our parent company, of course, was founded in 1981. It is now the dominant player in the Chinese domestic travel market. It has an extensive network which reaches across China, and we as Spring Airlines are able to tap into that as we build and develop new destinations, just domestically and internationally, which I'll talk about more importantly. Spring Tour was also very critical in building up the charter business in China, and the success in doing so really paved the way for the formation of Spring Airlines. Where we are now, you can see we're still, a mid-size operation, 33 A320s, 180-seat configuration. We are based out of both of Shanghai's airports, Hongqiao and Pudong, some of the most congested and expensive airports in the China market. But we also have strategic bases in the northeast of China, in Shenyang, and also a gateway to Beijing, Shijiazhuang. Of course, we're expanding our international market now. We have just recently launched flights to Bangkok, and we are expanding that to about 20% of our overall route network by the end of the year, taking in Korea, hopefully, and Taiwan. We heard today about the average age fleets of LCCs. For us, in terms of operational efficiency, the younger the fleet, the better. So our average age is 2.9 years. We are operating, as I said, out of very expensive airports. Some of the costs that we have to burden are extremely high, including our crew, which is some of the best paid in the world. So we are looking for every which way that we can to stay true to the LCC ideal. What has been notable from day one is that we've had extraordinary success. We have never been in the red since day one. We've been a profitable organization, and our load factors are extremely high, which just goes to show, even on the most untested routes, there is a huge demand in the Chinese market for an LCC product. The trouble for us now is with these high load factors, how to maximize our yield and increase our yield. And this is something which is one of the problems which is facing our revenue management team today. In terms of our capacity, as you can see, as we always draw on CAPA's extraordinary resources, we're now ranked 28th in terms of seat capacity for an LCC. When the CEO saw this figure, she said by the end of the year we want to crack the top 20, so you'll be seeing a lot more increased seat capacity. I won't stay on this one here, but I do want to say that what has changed in those 7 years in the aviation market is remarkable. And one thing that you can see is that the Chinese consumer is now avaricious in terms of wanting to travel and how they want to travel. We have high disposable incomes, particularly concentrated on the coastal belt, where Shanghai is centered. And you can see that Shanghai is our base, and we're very lucky to have that as our base, because we're able to tap into this demand as a tourist and as a business destination. What's remarkable is that when we started out, many people said that we would only be a low-fare proposition and that our customers would be low yield. What we see now is that 90% of our customers are in fact white-collar or business, and many of them are under 45 years old. And this figure here has helped determine how we are targeting our product. We are undergoing rapid re-evaluation of who we are in terms of the brand, the product we put on the market, and this is really determined by who we're serving. Of those 70% of our customers who are now really business orientated, you can see that many of them are middle management, upper management, but also we even have a small proportion of civil servants. Even in China's market today, where most public officials are going to be traveling on the 3 state carriers, local governments are actually seeing the benefit of being seen to be a very cost-conscious organization, and we are now seeing an increased number of civil servants on our airline. So who are we? What are we doing? How are we changing? We're changing really to the massive changes in the market itself. So we're putting out an image which really is in accordance with who we want to be in the market in the years ahead. And as our CEO says, that we have to be seen to be the young, passionate airline in what we do. We have to be dynamic. We have to have a very strong differentiation in our brand and also the product that we put onto the market, and be adaptable in how we put that to our audience. But also, we want to show that we have a much stronger recognition of who our customers are and what they expect of us. And this is what I will be talking about when I address the notion of social media. Because we are seeing a shifting demand from our customers, we are hybridizing in certain aspects of what we do. Probably one of the most important developments we've seen is our introduction of our new premium product, which is Spring Plus, which is offering a business-style product at a full economy fare. But as you can see, the value-added proposition for this is very, very attractive to this clientele. This product came about through a lot of very intense market research as to what our customers wanted from us. And previously, we had quite aggressive onboard sales along the lines of a Ryanair type of consideration, but by actually tapping into the feedback we were getting from some of our most high-yield customers, we now realize there was much more benefit in actually targeting products to this new and very important demographic. So by the end of this month, early next month, we will have actually added a movable curtain to add privacy, to add extra value to these passengers who are very, very keen to Spring's development in the future. Secondly, of course, is the notion of a frequent flyer program. For many LCCs, the added complexity of this means that they are a no-go zone. But we have actually evaluated the complexity against the benefit of this, and we've decided that actually for us, it is well worth developing. It's a very young product, but already we're seeing in terms of the product that we have put there and introduced to our frequent flyer scheme, has been very, very positive feedback from the public. As always, we heard Jetstar, we've heard everyone today talk about the notion of innovation and how critical that is for an LCC to grow. And that is very important for us in who we are. It's quite remarkable from day one, we had to opt out of everything and go alone and develop everything in-house. And that applied to our sales systems, our departure systems, and so on. So B2C from day one has been increasingly important to us. And today, we actually already have 75% direct B2C sales, but more importantly, that we're putting greater focus on our 3G platforms. Within the space of 2 years, we're already on to our second generation of mobile sales, and we have now got that up to around 8 to 10%. Accordingly, again, the CEO said strategically that this needs to be in the 15 to 20% range within the next 6 months. So we're now on the verge of launching our third generation, which will be available on multilingual. For Alexa, for a lot of airlines, it's not particularly important. For Spring it is, because it's a way of gauging our own performance on the international stage, but also in terms about seeing what our competition at home is doing. And we have seen the state-owned carriers, the big three, really improve their performance, online performance. That means for us that we have to continue to evolve and increase the efficiency, the range of payment solutions that we have for our customers. It's critical for our success, for us to be at the cutting edge in terms of online performance. As I said here, we are dedicated to making sure that we are a market leader. So recently we have revamped our websites. We have now introduced a new Japanese website. We now have a Thai website to cater for our new Bangkok route. We are now developing a Korean website, and already, even though these are very, very new, the research and development are now working on a new international platform entirely, which hopefully should be online next year. Ancillary was a notion which was very alien to the Chinese consumer when we first started selling. So it was very, very difficult for us to come into the market with a very strict luggage policy of 15 kilograms and ask you to pay everything else. To this day, it still presents a problem, but we hope by having a fuller, broader range of ancillary products that we can actually attract the more price-sensitive customer. Which now brings me to the notion of SNS, social media. This is very, very critical to how we see Spring developing in the years ahead. Just by way of an overview, you can see now that the number of people on the internet in China is expanding at a huge pace. 34% of the Chinese population are now constantly online, and they are more engaged than anywhere else, 92% contributing to social media. You can see that our emphasis on 3G is not misplaced because we now have 950 million mobile users in China. And we see now that in terms of consumption patterns, that mobile across the board is increasingly an issue for us in making sure that we are able to get every product, including all our ancillary products, online available via mobile. But more importantly, it's the way that they engage. They're actually blogging, they're actually talking about every customer experience. So it's very, very critical for us to be able to be part of that, from the dreaming stage, through to the planning stage, through to the sales, and then finally post-flight. We want to use social media as a tool to engage, to collaborate, to breed loyalty, to breed brand awareness, and so forth. The importance of social media is probably best demonstrated by this chart here. In terms of a Chinese consumer, if they see a company with a strong social media presence, they are particularly drawn for this. And you can see, by comparison, a far more cynical approach, or maybe a more realistic approach, in terms of the European consumer and what they do and how they believe. There is no need for other airlines in Europe or America to contribute that much. But in China, and also in Japan, as you can see, this is a matter which we give a great deal of thought to. How we actually connect using social media. Why that's so important is because developing new customers, we have to do that online. 60% of our existing customers have learnt about our brand from the internet. And it's encouraging to see that 20+% have heard about it from word of mouth. These figures alone suggest that if we do not have a strong online presence, it's going to be very, very difficult for Spring to exist, particularly in a media-savvy and media-saturated society such as China. So from the get-go, we've been very keen to make sure that we've had a presence. In 2007, our chairman, Wang Zhenghua, initiated the first blog. It was the first blog that a senior aviation figure had actually put online in China. And the response was almost immediate. People with very simple queries about where we flew, what we did, why we didn't offer meal services, why was our baggage allowance so strict. For us, it was a way, of course, to engage with the customer, to answer questions, but also educate them as to the notion of what an LCC was. Because even after 7 years of operating in the Chinese market, there is sometimes a lack of awareness of what an LCC does and what it delivers. So the total number of responses to that continues to this day, and to his credit, every post that is put online is actually read by our chairman. And there's a staff that works on responding. Every response has to be vetted by the chairman before it goes online. So there is a real engagement from the top down, and we'll see this in the future. We need to maximize our presence online using social media. Why? Simply because of what you've seen happening just in the last 2 years alone. We now is more likely to be 3 million than 250 million. This figure is a little bit out of date. Who are online constantly via Weibo, and they are changing the way that airlines are interactive. Already, I think I'll see it in the later slide, our presence on this is actually being rewarded quite well, because we're now, I think, ranked 11th in terms of all Chinese enterprises using social media across China, and that includes some very heavily engaged international companies such as L'Oreal, LVMH, who have this very, very large resources, and are also using social media in China extremely, very successfully. But also, traveling by LCCs is now quite hip with the Chinese consumer. We've seen that with Jetstar, we've seen that with AirAsia, all of their presence in China now. If you go online, if you go to travel blogs, if you go to Weibo, and you check for those keywords, you'll see an extraordinary amount of dialogue about LCCs and what they do. Customer evaluation, service, what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it. And this is the younger demographic, the under 45 demographic, which I spoke about previously. So now they're sharing their experiences via Weibo. So it's very important that we actually engage with them, we respond to them, we utilize this, we bring this on board, because we've seen that by doing so, we are able to get a lot of brand loyalty. Because with LCC, we all know in China, customers can be very disloyal. They're looking for the best price, and they're quite prepared to change accordingly. But by using this, we're actually seeing a lot more return in terms of our customers. Now, I'm going to have to rush through this, but Spring's customers are the most heavy users of social media in China, and it's very interesting to see that it's a very even division between male and female. But also, if you see in terms of age, it's really that demographic which we're aiming for. So who are they? Well, actually, of course, they're all in our catchment area of Shanghai, the Yangtze River Delta, but surprisingly in areas where we don't have very much presence at all. For example, Beijing, we only have one flight per day, but you can see that Beijing is very, very interested in the Spring product and what we do. Because again, they have now AirAsia flying into Beijing, so there's an awareness there. People want to know about what's happening, and it allows us to actually think about how we can develop our network, how we can develop our slots in the future. So you can see now that we have an extraordinary number of fans using social media in China on our Prime Weibo page. However, more importantly, the number of active fans is extremely high, and also the number of fake fans or bought fans is non-existent. So for us, it's very multifunction. It's a way for us to connect, it's a way for us to promote products, and it's also for a way to understand our consumers. We do a lot of market research using social media to understand what their preference is, where they want to fly, where they would like us to fly, what products we can put online next, etc. And also to understand other products or other services that they enjoy. Somehow we can look at building strategic partnerships. Also, it helps us to do delivery of real-time information, particularly in terms of crisis. During the recent typhoons, which had a huge impact on all Chinese operators, we were able to use that to connect directly in real time, inform people of cancellations, alterations, what was the policy, how they needed to rebook, etc. And this has actually helped us in our CSR very, very much. Also, it helps us to illustrate that we are a very professional, modern, and contemporary organization in the way that we operate. We have to fight some of the stereotypes that still exist in the market about LCCs. But social media is only important as a publicity tool, it's still not very important. What is important is its conversion into sales. And for us, we have been the first Chinese airline to actually use Weibo as a way to actually sell. So we now have real flight time information, inquiries, and the booking process, along with a whole range of payment platforms. This, I will see in the future, is now it's currently a very small percentage, but I would say within the next 2 years, you'll see a very large increase in this, hopefully up to double-digit figures. Also, as I said before, it's a way for us to actually crisis manage. We have our own customer service delivery platform whereby people can make real-time inquiries, and we do so. But this is just one part of a very intricate social media network, which I don't have time to talk about today. But all senior management, pretty much all senior management, including the head of our sales and marketing department, all have their own Weibo. It's all very much coordinated, as do our operational departments, such as our cabin crew, our flight crew, our recruitment and training are all there. Each of these is a coordinated structure whereby we push our brand, we push our product, and even more importantly, within the last year, we are now having a spring charity community project to actually enhance what we're doing, particularly in the Greater China region. So what we're doing is we're seeing that we're getting results now from how we're using social media. Despite the fact that our resources are very, very few in terms of what we're doing, the impact is remarkable. And we're now ranked #1 amongst all Chinese airlines in terms of relevance, in terms of reply, etc. But as I said, ranked 11th across China. Again, the CEO is not happy with that. We want to be #1 within the next 18 months. But this is not, we talk about Weibo, that's very, very limited. Actually, there are many, many different types of social media operating in China, and each of them has their own distinct demographic. I won't go through them all, but our QQ is 10 is a very, very unique platform, but it's one we use, but we target very, very carefully because there's a lot more negative feedback. We target it for younger people. It's much softer content. We look what is happening in the cultural realm. For example, one of the biggest promotions we had by QQ tied in with the launch of the Transformers film last year, which was a huge box office success. With that event alone, on QQ, we had 5 million followers of that. Of course, new horizons, new challenges. I'm going to wrap up very quickly just by saying that now we are aiming to become a much more international organization, but we are very limited in our international social media presence. As you can see in terms of Facebook and Twitter, there are obviously problems operating these types of social networks from China. But these problems we have to address in order to have the same degree of relevance and the same degree of connectivity with our international clientele. So to this end, the CEO just in the last few months has now set up a new social media division, which is directly responsible to the CEO. We are currently putting together a new international social media strategy. I'm very excited to be part of that. And I see that as critical as we move into, obviously, into Japan markets, Korea, and into Southeast Asia. For us, it's a very, very exciting time. We're aware that our brand is young. We're aware that we have to change. We love what we've heard today about some of the success stories and some of the challenges that have been faced by other airlines. We're taking that all on board. And our goal, as the CEO says, is to become the preferred LCC choice for the Chinese consumer, not just now, but in the years ahead. Thank you very much.